increasing sick times that's not related to COVID? I would fully suspect so. That being said, we can clearly identify that a lot of the issues are specifically related to COVID. So it is a combination, and we are putting some of the tools that will hopefully help mitigate this moving into the future. But this is a trend across the entire province, as well as in all services, police, fire, or ambulance, that these costs are increasing, all throughout the province. That's something I don't have influence over, unfortunately.
So if I could just kind of supplementary to the last two questions, going back to your comment to the costs having increased over the last 3 years, do I understand correctly that there is a further increase in your budget and hence in our levies? And is that in anticipation? The sick time issue is going to continue, or am I wrong about that?
To you, Mr. Mayor, no, you're absolutely right. The committee approved a recommendation for an 4.85% levy increase for EMS for 20. Town of Parry Sound Council approved that recommendation. That is a combination, so there's no service level increases in that levy increase. That we're not going to be able to get away from our increased cost for PPE and COVID related expenses in 2021, as well as making sure that the sick time is adequately budgeted for, and that there won't be additional surprises like a requirement to either run a deficit, utilize reserves, which are not like to see them, or to request additional funds throughout the year from the municipalities. We recognize, everyone recognizes, people on the EMS Advisory Committee, Town of Parry Sound Council, staff, that a supplemental levy is not ideal in many for sure. The goal is to not ever have to do that again.
Okay, thank you. Other councillors?
I have one more. I noticed in your Councillor Lamkin, I noticed in your financials that you have, and I may have it wrong, I'm trying to follow the agenda on my phone, which makes it kind of hard here, but you have 1.4 or 1.5 million, I thought, in cash. I mean, around the area. So I guess my question is, ordinary in 2020 because of COVID, and you built in the 4.5% increase next year. Did you ever consider drawing down on your cash asset to fund this sort of increase as opposed to just simply passing amounts on the ballot? And my second, and I'm going to promise you my last question, again, when I look in the finance, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was $571,000 for severance. So I'd like you to explain to me what $571,000 worth of severance is in your financial package.
Through your worship, those two issues tie directly together, so I can answer those questions. The reserves have been depleted over the past 2 years to pay for this. So the exact total number of the reserves I could find here, but it would take me too long. I don't think it would serve the purpose. There are 3 separate reserves. One is for capital equipment purchases, ambulances, capital works at some of the EMS base, or defibrillators, very expensive items that we need to replace on a regular basis. For example, we have a 5-year replacement cycle for the ambulances. Those ambulances are pretty well worn out after 5 years. So with 13 ambulances in the fleet, that turns over. The severance reserve. So I'm going to answer your second question at the same time answering your first question now. When the service was initially provided or downloaded from the Ministry of Health to the municipality, the intent of it was that if the employee of the contractor or the employer, that severances have to be paid out by never been touched from the time the service was downloaded in 2000 or 2001, and it has simply accumulated in that particular reserve. So that's actually a lion's share of the reserves that you saw as cash. Interestingly, we have done of that particular reserve. If we ever had to pay out those severances, there wouldn't be enough money in that reserve to do it. That reserve actually needs to start being severance payout if it ever had to happen. So no money has ever been paid out for severances out of that reserve fund. It has simply sat there since the ministry provided it when they downloaded the service in the early 2000s.
Thank you.
The third and final reserve is the operating reserve. We have drawn down upon the operating reserve for the past 2 years, 2018 and 2019, to cover shortfalls in the budget at those times. That was an option to take a look at. My assessment was that we had been drawing down on it too much. If we were to alleviate this concern that we had this year, it would have been putting us in a very precarious situation moving forward from a financial standpoint. So two of those reserves are specifically earmarked for capital items as well as the severance reserve. The third reserve is the operating reserve, which has been drawn and is getting into an unstable situation. We need to actually start moving that reserve back upwards if we can ever get a surplus moving forward.
So I must say, I'm curious, David, at your concern that the severance reserve might be too low. It seems to me that you would only use that reserve if the contractor were to terminate a member of staff for cause. If they voluntarily resign or whatever, you're not incurring expenses, are you? Or are you including recruiting expenses or something in there? Like, why do you think that reserve is not adequate?
So through our lawyer, I have to rely on other people to provide that type of information. That reserve is actually not intended for if we terminate someone for cause either. That service were to move to a new employer. At that point, there could be severance costs incurred.
Okay, well, that's okay. Thank you. Again, are there questions, other questions from our council? Anybody else?
I have to ask one final question. Oh, we got a light agenda tonight, so I'm going to curse it. I know, but benefit. What is the basis of the formula by which each municipality gets leverage? Because I know there's all kinds of problems in the area. Is it based solely on permanent population or something, or can you simply give me an answer to that? Or is it a very complicated thing?
Through you, your worship, that one's an easy one. It is based upon and that's legislated.
Legislative provincial.
Correct.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're winding down this topic. I don't want to drag it out. My only other comment might be that intrigued about this arrangement from a what I'll call a governance perspective. Because we're a situation where the town of Parry Sound is, I guess, the service provider, but the hospitals is a mixture of people, a mixture of municipalities and the province, of course, paying for it. But the advisory committee, I mean, I'm kind of interested in the fact that you basically said to us, well, they overruled your suggestion. Your mayor advised some of us that the advisory committee was simply an advisory committee, and that weren't bound by anything that they decided. I think, I don't know if you could comment on that perhaps and say whether if you feel you're bound to do to follow what they decide. But the interesting thing in our circumstance, it sounds like the advisory committee made an assumption that because every municipality had received some COVID-19 funds, that the money was there and you could just go. Of course, as I have explained to some other people, we've already had those funds earmarked for other things. So it might be fair to say that we have some concerns about this works from a governance point of view going forward.
Through you, Your Worship, I'm happy to answer that question. And I mean, everyone is saying something that's absolutely correct. The Town of Parry Sound Advisory Committee, that's not legislated. They could unilaterally make all the decisions they wanted to. When it was downloaded, the concept of an advisory committee was chosen to get input from the district municipalities into the service. The Town of Parry Sound Council, I believe, has always taken that input very seriously. I actually sat on the advisory committee representing Seguin in my past job. And there has not been a time when the Town of Parry Sound has not taken the advice that or the recommendations that the advisory committee has moved forward. So they seriously wish, and those recommendations, advice and recommendations very seriously.
Okay, well, thanks. I realize this evening, but we do appreciate you coming out and taking the time to inform us on how this all works and what led to the levy. So unless there are any other questions, I guess we can move on to our next agenda item. Anybody else? Thanks again, Dave. Appreciate it.
Very much, Your Worship. Have a good night.
You too. Next on our agenda, we have with us Nadine Hammond, who is the curator and manager of the museum on Tower Hill. And she has a great deal of background material which is in your agenda package. And I believe update on some of the things that are happening at the museum. So Nadine,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
the floor is
Yes,
yours.
thank you. So, Your Worship, Mayor thank you for your time and consideration. The chair of my board of directors is also here with us, Robert Wood. So shortly after the museum unfortunately suffered from burst pipe, flooded, I think it's the north side of the building. Fortunately, the damage was all basically contained to our washrooms and hallways. None of the artifacts or the exhibit rooms were touched. All seemed to be a bit of a mixed blessing because of the incident was covered by insurance, so all of the repairs were done. But the company that came in to do the repairs generously offered to our damaged insulation because we had raccoons in our attic, and sealed off the attic, replaced some of our cedar siding, and replaced the insulation. And it was absolutely amazing. And the repairs, while separate from the water damage, were necessary and wouldn't have been possible without the generosity of Sure General Contracting out of Toronto.
Nadine, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just going to ask the rest of the group, are you experiencing bad audio here?
Also,
I am.
Everybody?
yeah,
Bad audio here.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm wondering if you can, Nadine, not that we wouldn't prefer to watch you, but if you could try maybe, just shut, not muting, but shut your camera off for a second. Maybe if we can hear you better, because your voice sounds quite garbled for some reason or other.
Is that better?
Sounds like it, yes.
Okay. My apologies. All right, to quickly recap, because I'm not sure what you heard and what you didn't. Shortly after the lockdown in March, we had a sprinkler burst, damage that was mostly contained to our hallways and bathrooms, not our exhibits, and artifacts were fortunately not touched. The Sure General Contract offered to do some additional work for us, which was replace siding and replace insulation in the attic due to raccoon damage, and then seal everything up for us. The pandemic also introduced some new challenges, including drastically altering how we allow visitors access to public spaces. During the lockdown, the collection supervisor and communications intern focused on digital content in order to engage and communicate with our audiences. Our collection supervisor also managed to catch up on some cataloging of our image collection. We reopened our doors this summer to patrons. And this November, we opened a very different type of exhibition, the Adam Brown Adventure and Escape Room Experience for staff, and a very exciting one. It was made possible by the support of Team Marshall and Georgian Bay Software. To date, we've had over 15 groups go through the experience and have received extremely positive feedback. The Genealogy Club is continuing to meet monthly via Zoom, and last week was giving, so we generously offered to match up to $500 for donations made that day. Staff's goal was to raise $1,000, but thanks to the generosity and the amazing support of the West Parry Sound District, we raised close to $6,000. Acknowledge that there's going to be challenges moving into 2021, including operational shortfalls and trying to find a capital reserve fund to take care of our building. However, we are looking forward to continuing to District Museum through the opening of a new permanent exhibition in the E. Roy Smith Gallery. For those that you who are not familiar, we have a model train railway that has been installed, and we're just waiting for the additional exhibits to be installed before we can reopen that room. We're also in the infancy stages of law program, as well as the development of new digital content. We encourage you to book an appointment to visit the museum and show you the new exhibits. As well, we also want to invite you to appoint a municipal rep to sit on our board so that you can understand what we're doing, how we're doing, give you a little bit of more say in how any funds that you choose to contribute to the museum might be utilized. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Embracing the Zoom technology, although that doesn't always work, it's enabled Nadine and I to be at Seguin Council roughly 1 hour ago, and here we are again. So that's a little plug. Nadine invited me to join her here. I'm the new chair. Working with her is a lot of fun. I felt it would be the perfect opportunity to speak about some of our board level activity, and I'll make it brief. While Nadine has been navigating the challenge, she's also had to deal with some significant board turnover. The other side of that is our board is very energized and motivated to providing her with the tools that she needs to succeed. The finance committee has worked very hard to bring our financial documentation in line. Our strategic development committee has been busy working up ideas for the coming, including the docent program Nadine mentioned. And finally, we are committed to continuing our community outreach. This includes a partnership with Trestle Brewery and their Arrow beer, which is out now. Bay Biosphere and their canoe exhibit, as well as outreach into the various district communities. You can expect to see the museum staff or board members out and about in one way or another, gathering community stories. In our mission statement, we mentioned history, and we feel very often stories can be more valuable and have more longevity than artifacts. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, both Nadine and Robert. Open it up for questions from councilors. Or anyone.
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, thank you both for coming out. I'm sure this past year has not been an easy one for you under the circumstances. And this and next year you can get some more people back into the building and get some more donations and admissions and that sort of thing. I think you're doing an admirable job. What normally we do, and I'm sure the mayor will say this, is that as we approach our early New Year, we have a whole bunch of donations, certain monies that are put aside for donations, and I'm sure your request along with others, so we'll go forward. In the meantime, hunker down, and hopefully things will be good for you. I noticed you're requesting, I think, a 4 or 5% increase next year, and I understand where that's coming from.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks. Are there other questions?
Just a quick one, Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Go ahead.
Robert, I'm curious to know how many members or how many board members you actually have and what you need to run the operation. You are?
We have 9 board members right now, and that includes three of the other municipal reps and 6 regular members. And we are also currently soliciting because we want to get that number up.
Okay, so that's more of an operative number, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for coming out, and Appreciate the work you do there.
Thank you.
You and Nadine, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ask a question?
Go ahead, please, Doug.
Yes, Robert or Nadine, does the tower fall under your jurisdiction or not?
The tower is owned and operated by the town of Perry Sound. The museum's responsibility up on Tower Hill is essentially just the museum, so the building inward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Again, Councillor Lamb, I just have one final comment, I guess. In the past, I've been on council for 12, 13 years now, and we used to get substantially more, I might say, but it was always important through the years that somehow that there was some connection to Whitestone, like a project that we could sort of put an earmark on and say, hey, you know, that's coming out of Whitestone contact, right? And we've done we've had some great museum people, and the fees, etc., are from the area. Of course, we have a very active historical societies in the area. I don't know whether they're for sale at the museum or not.
They are.
So as you get into programming next year, any connection that you can bring directly to Whitestone is certainly a good way for us to advertise that, if you will, in the community. And not only does it help in terms of justifying the dollars that the community will put forward to the community, but also could be used as a platform for fundraising from our to think kind of out of the box and in the box. Please bear that in mind. And I'm sure that goes for more than just many of the the more you can connect to a community, the better off you will be and we'll all be. Thank you.
We do very much try to focus on the fact that we are not the Perry Sound Museum, but the West Perry Sound. I can't comment off the top of my head if there's anything specifically Whitestone related coming out in the new year, mostly because this year is difficult. We have no idea what 21 is going to bring. We've got some basic plans, but nothing near what we were planning to before. I can say that this year we had a logging exhibition open, which does directly tie into Whitestone. While it wasn't with all the logging history in the area, we certainly touched on the area. And we are very cognizant of trying to tie in all of the municipalities into our, just because, as I said at the beginning, we're the district, not the Town of Perry Sound Museum. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything else for our guests?
Yes, may I go, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, mine isn't so much a question. It's just kind of a congratulations for the museum for being able to pivot this year and offer different types of programming under limited circumstances. And I just wanted to encourage anyone. I haven't really great things about the escape room that you have going on. I've seen a number of posts on Facebook about it that have been really positive, and so anybody that hasn't had a chance to try it should.
All right, thank you for that.
Sorry, just as an add-on to what Councillor Matthews said there, the escape room's a lot of fun. I went through there with my family, and it's great for all ages, and it's it's a lot different actually, and you get a little bit of history and a little bit of fun and a little bit of Christmas. So thank you for mentioning that.
Great. Well, once again, thanks for coming out and sharing your information with us and your enthusiasm. We appreciate it, and we'll, as Councillor Lamb mentioned, and when we get to our looking at our donation requests for, we will, yours will be considered in the mix. That'd probably be in, I would guess, the March timeframe. Typically, is that correct, Madam CAO? I'm making her, I guess, making her unmute her microphone. Anyway, don't worry about it. I think it's in the March timeframe.
Yeah, yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Around March is when the treasurer would usually bring that report to council.
Okay, well, thanks again. And you're welcome to stay if you wish, but if you choose to use the rest of your evening, I hope you have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that allows us to item 9 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And we have there the usual items to, well, so our regular council meeting of November 16th, we have the minutes of the Whitestone Public Library Board for Monday, October 19th, and we have the list of unfinished business. So could I get for those items, please? I saw Councillor Gar Matthews hand, seconded by.
I'll second.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any discussion of those? Are there any of them that you would like to talk about after we approve this motion? Or any discussion, questions about them? All right, then I will ask in favor of the motion. Are there any objections? So hearing none and seeing no hands waving frantically, I will declare the consent agenda approved. I will just ask, are there any items there that you want to draw attention to before we move on? We do have a spot for matters arising from the consent agenda. If not, we will move on to accounts payable. And I'm looking for a mover and seconder. The municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve accounts payable in the amount of $355,307.41 and $35,619.83 for payment. Would someone move that, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. Very good. Are there any questions about those payables or any questions or comments?
Yeah, and we don't need to go through them. I noticed again, I guess this is sort of becoming my regular question at the accounts payable, but I noticed, for instance, 35,514 Haley Road, I guess, an expenditure of $1,069 for the road grant. There's another one, 27 for D Lane or D Lake. Anyway, again, because the application date was the end of September, I take it there were complications with these applications, and that's why they're coming forward in December. Just it seems to me that this year there's more of these applications coming through fairly late in the year. I'm not exactly sure why, but as long as there's an explanation and we're following the rules, and I'm fine with it. We don't need to go through the detail of it. Any comments?
Madam CAO, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can comment on that. What I understand from our treasurer, because I did notice that as well, there was a number of road grant applications this year where the mailing address was given to the cottage, and so we would get the check returned. And because the check would have the actual cottage address on it, she would have to cancel the check, reissue the check to the address where they normally live during the winter. For some reason, more of a problem this year than last. So she's going to change the application form to have a cottage address and a home address for when the check is issued. And this is one of the ones that was returned to us, and we had to reissue the check. They met the September 30th deadline for application, so that was correct. Just an error in the address.
Okay, anything else on payables? All right, then, and I will ask our clerk to call the roll, please, on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen
Yes.
and Councillor Wood
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. That motion is carried unanimously. And we have nothing under bylaws or staff reports for this evening. It is turning out to be a fairly light agenda, but there is the item. Well, there are two items now under item 13, which is business matters. The first one, I'll just introduce very quickly. I think you will all recall that I announced the death of a member of the Wawashkish. This is the Wawashkish Landings Task Force, actually. His name was Dr. Mike Messina. And I mentioned to council that he had succumbed to cancer back really at the end of the summer.
Mr. Mayor, you turned away from your mic. I didn't catch that name. Sorry.
Mike Messina.
Thank you.
He was a member of the executive of the Lake Wawashkish Conservation Association, and he passed away just at the end of the summer there, early September, I guess. And so the task force it's still carrying on. There is a little bit of work left to do. A lot of work did get done right at the end of the summer, and you're going to get a report on that, but probably not until January. Just to give you an idea of what all did get done. It got done quite late after Thanksgiving. But there's still a bit more work to do, and so the Conservation Association asked if we wanted to appoint someone to take Mike's place on the task force, and their suggestion was a fellow by the name of Steve Raw, who is he is now as of their annual meeting this year on their executive again, and so we're bringing a motion that that's on your order paper, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the volunteer information form for the Wawashkish Landings Task Force and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone hereby appoints Stefan Raw to the Wawashkish Task Force. Could I get a mover and seconder for that motion, please? Looking, I see
Councilor McEwen, I'll move that.
Councilor Gorham Matthews put her hand up, and Councilor McEwen, right? Seconded.
Yes.
Any discussion? All right, is anyone opposed to this motion? All right, thank you. Hearing none. That motion is carried. Next one is item 13.2. And once again, oh, okay, sorry. Once again, I'll just introduce this. You will recall last year that we attended the Roma is the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association. We attended their conference in Toronto, which was in February, just before COVID-19 kind of hit. It was a face-to-face meeting, and we did at that time have a delegation with the Minister of Natural Resources, John Yakubuski, to ask him to do some things in relation to the flooding and water levels in Washkash, and in fact in the whole Magnetawan River system. So that was and that did result in some things happening. We actually have a conference call, virtual meeting. It is scheduled. It's been organized by the Ministry of Natural Resources, and it's organized. They have invited all of the mayors for the municipalities that are along the Magnetawan watershed. So all the way over from Highway 11, Burkes Falls and McCarr and Armour and folks like that, Sundridge, Magnetawan, Whitestone, and there are some that are over close to Highway 69 in the Brit area. So, and the Magnetawan First Nation, of course. So anyway, they've organized a virtual meeting for this Wednesday. So I say all of that by way of background, just to tell you that sometimes things do happen as a result of our delegations. Roma 21 is scheduled for the end of January, and it will be a virtual meeting. There's no physical presence or travel involved. The deadline to request delegations was, in fact, a week ago, this past Friday. And so I took the liberty of submitting a couple of delegation requests on your behalf. And the text of those, they're not really public information, but the text of them is has been sent to the councilors so that you kind of know what the pitch was. We don't know, of course, whether we'll get those, whether they will grant us the meeting or not that we've asked for. We've actually asked for 2 meetings. One of them, just to let you know, one of them has to do with it's what I refer to as the abuse of Crown land in the areas of Black Lake and Round Lake. And we even included some problems that have occurred at Clear Lake with the Nesbitt Trail. And I know that Councillor McEwen was out and looked at it and is aware of that situation. So we're asking once again, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry to do something about that situation, because it is Crown land and it's not something that we have the degree of control over that would allow us to do anything. assuming we had the resources to do it anyway. And the second one is a request to meet with the Minister of Infrastructure, Lori Scott, to talk about rural broadband internet connectivity in the Whitestone and also McKellar area. So this is again part of this joint activity that I mentioned to you previously with McKellar. So anyway, that's what led to all of this. What you have in front of you is a request to simply receive the Roma 2021 delegation request form for information. So if I could have somebody move that, please, and second it, and then if there are any questions or discussion, we can.
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Any discussion?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, I think they were both well written, and the only thing I noticed, and I didn't realize I'd already gone in, a bit of a mute point this time, but I had noticed there was no mention of the OPP, so I'm assuming that whatever they do as a result of this delegation, if they have a meeting, that it, of course, also should include the OPP as an integral part of all this. I just didn't see OPP mentioned. Again, I don't think it's critical now. I'm sure they wouldn't involve. Okay, that's the only point. Other than that,
Well, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that comment, because that reminds me of something that I was going to mention. The actual delegation request form does not allow you to and they specifically prohibit you from asking for meetings with multiple ministers at the same time, and that is because of scheduling issues. So that's why we. If that had not been the case, I probably would have put down a couple of other names. But this isn't the only avenue that we're pursuing. I had asked quite some time ago for, had asked the new district manager of the Ministry of Natural Resources in Parry Sound to organize a meeting, which he promised to do before Christmas time, but it hasn't been scheduled yet to my knowledge. And the meeting was supposed to involve representatives of the OPP, of course, of representatives of his ministry, the OPP, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, because they have a chunk of land adjacent to Bolger Lake that's involved in this whole problem. And the whole idea was that whatever solution there is to this is going to involve all of those parties, and I think they all need to weigh in and let the powers that be know what they've seen there, because as you talk to them separately, they all comment on this situation. I think our role is more trying to get trying to get everybody together to see if they can come up with a solution. And one way or the other, that's what we're going to ask for. We're not just saying to the, if you look at the request, you'll see we're suggesting that there should be a ministerial order barring off-road vehicles in that particular area. But that's an interim measure. Ultimately, the groups that I mentioned need to look at, well, how do we make it into an area that will attract wilderness campers and so on, who hopefully will appreciate the natural beauty of the place and not wreck it. So that's sort of in a nutshell what this one is about. Anyway, are there any other questions or comments? If not, then I'll call the question. Is anyone in reverse? Is anyone opposed to this receiving this information? All right, I don't see anything. Any objection? All right, so that takes us down to correspondence. And we do have a list of items. Which includes, well, there are items up to K, so that would be 10, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. The motion that I'm looking for is whereas the council of the municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 4 of the December 7th, 2020 council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that council hereby receives the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion. So could I ask, looking at that list, if there are any that you wish to discuss? Anybody? Okay, well, I'll ask for a mover and seconder, and you can still think about it. We can populate the list if you come up with one. Could I ask for a mover and seconder to receive these items down?
I'll move, Councillor Wood.
Okay, I heard Councillor McEwen, I think first, and then Councillor Woods.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Woods, you seconded, correct? Okay, once again, are there any that you wish to discuss?
Mr. Mayor, just I guess a question of you. The first one there, the Ogre Conference. Is there any need or urgency if, say, someone does want to get involved in some of the, I guess, virtual meeting that would take place with that conference? I guess we have to pre-register. Is that correct?
I will ask our CAO if she would like to comment on that. I know she's been involved, and our work superintendent or road superintendent has in the past gone to some of these meetings. Any thoughts about the upcoming one, Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually haven't looked at the agenda yet for that, but I'm assuming that our new public works manager would be interested in going. And certainly in the past, councillors have attended, physically. It may serve us well to see what's on the agenda for that meeting. If councillors have interest in attending, you can, from the safety of your own home, you can participate. So I can go online and see what the agenda looks like, and I'll also find out when the early bird special ends. Usually, if you sign up early, there's a bit of a savings, maybe $100 per sign up. So I'll do that and send that off to council.
Yeah, I think we have time because it's not till towards the end of almost the end of February, correct?
February, yes. Right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else about this one? All right. Is anyone opposed? Okay, we have received that the correspondence. That for councillor items. Councillors.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen, if I could, just one item.
Go ahead, please.
I sent information. I'm not sure who all received it. It was to do with water testing, lake testing, and more specifically, I guess, on Whitestone, but in surrounding. Then there was the report that came forward from the Georgian Bay Biosphere. They were the ones who were doing the benthic testing for us. We commissioned them for a 3-year period and they started this year. So I found the report very interesting. So I asked CIO to on a meeting, like the January meeting coming up in the future. I think it's something that should be public knowledge, which we can do as time goes on once councilors have a chance to view it. But a lot of this was in part, and thank you to Dennis and Libby Morrison. I saw them on the lake a couple times going around to do the testing, sampling and such. So they carried it out through the, more specific through August, I guess was the main time, into September. So anyway, I found it for the lake, for water quality and the fish habitat, fish community they call it and such. So councils can look forward to receiving that in the near future, and hopefully we'll get it on the agenda, and possibly Dennis would come in and even delegate and speak to us for a few minutes on or something if we so desired. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for circulating that, Councillor McEwen, and thanks for the suggestion. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor McEwen, my grandson was actually supposed to go out on the, I think it was the pontoon boat while they were doing all that testing, but somehow we couldn't. So I encourage them next year that if you have any teenagers, kids, or whatever, that Dennis is certainly good enough to say, you know, come on out with me and learn something about testing in the water. I think it's a wonderful adventure for them to, you know, for the community.
That's a good point, Councillor Lamb. I think it'd be good education, and I think it is for anyone on the whole lake system, but some young fellow like that in particular, good experience. Thanks.
So I have 2 or 3 things, Mr. Mayor, 3 things important. Anyway, first of all, I just want to remind the CAO that here as deputy mayor, I think, is up now. So I don't know who's next in the bucket, and I don't know whether we actually appoint someone or appoint the next person by way of a council resolution. So I just leave that with you for the next meeting or whatever. But I think I'm up as secondly, I want to thank everyone for the fruit basket. It was wonderful. I know that Judy sort of arranged it, and it was absolutely great basket. You made my wife Kat thrilled that she opened it. I just she went through it like it was Christmas morning. You know, in fact, it'll probably be better than Christmas morning this year. I don't know, but anyway, thank you all for that. The third thing is I saw on Facebook at one point people questioning the clear bag policy, and the people weren't questioning about clear bags. What they were questioning was, where do they get clear bags for the small kitchen? You can get clear bags for, obviously, for your big garbage cans, and I don't think the problem is at all. So I directed the person at one point to say, you should try Walmart, and I think they went to Walmart and maybe found something there. And then I think someone else asked whether they could, you know, use the blue ones that are sort of transparent or whatever. And I think Councilor Matthews answered that person, but that was fine to use that. So my only suggestion is that maybe staff do a little bit of research and come up with 5 or 6 different places in the area, or chains or whatever, that would have particularly the bags for the kitchen and garbage, and that the landfill attendants listed, because sorry about that. Because I'm afraid as we get into January, we'll ask them that question. So simply either give them a list or give them information. and avoid any kind of controversy that cut them slack in the time there and give the button, you know, go find it. Last thing that I wanted to talk about is the meeting a week tonight on September the 14th. And I know there's been, you know, some emails council about, you know, the format of that kind of thing. And I know the people are coming in from Perry Sound. Opportunity for us to ask questions. At one point, I got the idea that, well, you know, this wasn't going to be, it was kind of going to be open, but it really wasn't going to be open. It was sort of a one-way type of communication, and I wasn't very much for that. And I expressed that to the clerk. I don't believe in a whole bunch of emails back and forth to council, but I just, you know, and then it came out that in the meeting next week is going to be sort of the committee as a whole, which is fine. So, which means that there is participation by council and whoever, you know, kind of wants to solve it. And I think that everyone should be able to ask questions. The question is asked and answered. It doesn't have to be asked the second or third or fourth time. But, you know, once it's asked and answered, it's answered. Right? Should be able to ask those questions, and hopefully that will take place. At one point, there was the idea of, well, this isn't really a meeting for you to give your opinion of the pool initiative. I guess for that is, you know, we've been running these, well, Zoom meetings, but we've been running these the last year, and I think we've all council and figures and everyone been very respectful. I can't think of any, you know, real controversies that we've had, or, you know, over speaking, you know, or anything like that. And I think we'll have this meeting very professional. But I can never remember in 12 years ever having a committee of the whole meeting where people, if they want to, can't express their opinion for whatever an initiative. We don't say to people, you know, you can come and deal with this planning item, but we don't, or anything that's really open. So I don't want to shut down our very citizens who we serve from, you know, commenting. Comes up next week. I think it'll be a professional meeting that hopefully we'll all share information. I know it's not a time that we're going to vote on anything, because, you know, all this letters on as citizens, we're all going to feedback and we'll continue to feedback, I'm sure, over the next month or so. Having said that, I don't want to, I just want this meeting to be fair, and I'd rather, you know, discuss it, you know, now, rather than, you know, set some sort of expectation up next week where right away I'm saying, hey, I don't agree with that. I think this is council, and I think that respectfully people should be able to ask questions. And if I have an opinion on some aspect of the project, I shouldn't have to say, well, I don't have an opinion on that. I'm not going to give you feedback on it. I need to do that as council, or I need to do it on behalf of the citizens that we all represent. And I think we all have to remember that we're, you know, we're put in office to hopefully serve that knows that we solve issues. Enough on that. That's how I see the meeting. Debate it. You know, as much as people want to, and I don't want to start a controversy either. I just think what I'm saying.
Thanks.
Hi, Joan.
Not.
Hi, how are you?
Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Just got a cup of tea.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can just respond, there isn't, certainly not, there's no intention on my part, and I'll be chairing the meeting, I guess. No intention on my part to from asking questions or from commenting. I wanted that people understood that the council was not being asked to make a decision at that particular meeting. And so I don't think we need the kind of debate that we would expect to get when there is a decision to be made. There isn't, it's the meeting will be in committee of the whole, and it won't be, there are no resolutions, so to speak, on the table other than the housekeeping ones to get the meeting going. I think the only other request that I will likely make at the beginning of the meeting is that, out of respect to the fact that we do have some guests who are coming basically to present you know, some of the aspects of the what the work that's been done in the proposals, that the proposal as it is, that we at the beginning of the meeting there on answering listening to them and answering any questions or asking any questions that we have of the material that they're presented, not basically here to talk to us about why Whitestone should support the project. They're here to provide information about the project. But from my point of view, we can carry on as we want, and hopefully we, as you've suggested, we don't have, you know, just one after another repeating. But if people want to say what their concerns are or their positions are, that's or what they think the benefits of the project are, they're welcome to do so.
Thank you.
Within the time allowed. So I don't, and I anticipate, just as you do, Councillor Lamb, that we'll have a you know, a polite professional discussion. Anything else? Councillor items.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Beth.
Sure. So I just wanted to let everyone know that on Saturday, there was the opportunity to see Santa down in the Dun. We had borrowed a really cute little sleigh from Magneton, and we had over 50 children come through that morning in about a 2.5 hour period. Everyone had booked their time slots, so everything was pretty spaced out, and great time. They brought letters for Santa, and they all got a present, a little bag of candy from the Lions Club. So yeah, I just wanted to thank our rec committee for organizing that, and the fire department were there as well and helped with traffic control to make sure that nobody, nothing got congested with in terms of people visiting or hanging out afterwards. Everyone was pretty great at going through and seeing Santa and going home, and it was a great opportunity to introduce to the strange year. So thank you for that. So that was just a comment. I have a question with regards to the ice rink. I did touch base with our CAO about this. I just wanted to confirm. I've had people asking if the Dundome was going to have ice in it, and I was just checking to see if discussed about that in terms of limitations put on it with the usage of the change room or anything like that, or if we're just going to have the ice in and everyone can use it.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned the event on Saturday. Certainly go to Rebecca Green, who came up with the idea, I think, in the first place, and did some organizing, and to Bob and Kathy Whitman for helping out with keeping it. And I too heard that it went very well. So it's great that, I think it's great that we were able to as you say, put a little bit of normalcy into what a really abnormal year in terms of social and recreational type activities. As far as the rink is concerned, I guess really this is an item that should come to council, and maybe it should have come now. The clerk and I spoke briefly about it, but I don't know that we made. I don't know that there was any decision made. Michelle, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My personal opinion is that we should put the ice in. I think that we can put signs up that remind people about social distancing. You know, we know that our families in Whitestone are craving activities at times, and the ice rink is something they look forward to every year. And so we're preparing our staff for putting the ice rink in. You know, we could think about whether we want to open the change rooms or not, but we have the washrooms open. And I think the change rooms are an important component of the use of the rink. So that would be my personal opinion, that families would have to, you know, show due diligence and be careful with the activities that they use the rink for. But I think it would be a nice place for a family to be able to take their kids. There's not a lot of opportunities right now. So that would be my thought. I think it could be done safely, and we'll sign it to remind people, and we'll go ahead and put the ice in if that's council's desire. Of course, our next council meeting isn't until January 18th. So, well, other than the meeting next week, so it may be wise to confirm if council has any concerns about that tonight.
Yes, okay, thanks. And I'm thought of that and put it on the agenda, but would other councilors like to, do you have any opinions that you'd like to express about?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councilor Lamb. Absolutely, I agree with what you said. My sense is that because of COVID, that of course you're going to have more and more people be late this Christmas than ever. You know, they're not able to go on vacation, fly out of the country or anything like that, and people will, I think, more and more will be morphing towards the lake, so or towards Whitestone, and to think the lakes would be frozen over and they might be able to do some ice fishing or that kind of thing, but I think the rink will take on an even greater importance this year. Encourage staff to try hard. I looked at this today myself, in fact, someone had asked, and I looked out into someone that's ice going in now, and of course, I think I responded, sure, but it's going to be plus tomorrow or whatever, right? But when you look out in the long-term forecast, out a week or 10 days from now, it's starting to get pretty cold at night, and I think the ice can go in. So I think and try to keep the change rooms open if we can. You know, most hockey leagues are not going as leagues, but shinny is being played without body checking and that kind of stuff, so that people are, you know, kind of social distancing that. Got all that down. There's not very much that people can do nowadays. I'd encourage you to do everything you can to keep that going. I don't know what other activities. I don't know. Do they snow? Do they toboggan down the hill in front of the community center, or is that not keep it up? But whatever we can do, I think we should take it early over the Christmas New Year. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Councilor,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an opportunity for some exercise, at least in the community. I know arenas and other locations have specific rules. The rink, they come dressed, and even into the the upper sized kids in Prairie Sound, for instance, they go pre-dressed helmet, and only one person can go into the rink with them, and it's very monitored. I took my young lad there, or my grandson, a couple weeks ago. It's very, very controlled. We want to set some definite rules, or make sure people follow the rules and guidelines. Hockey is hockey itself versus just plain skating is a bit of a different deal, I think. The breathing's so heavy, and the contact comes even without contact. So anyway, I'd be supportive of it, but I think we should make sure that we have distancing and they follow certain protocol.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods, could I say something?
Please.
Please open the rink. I think it would be a welcome treat for a lot of parents. A lot of hockey still running, but a lot of it actually being shut down. A lot of kids didn't sign up for hockey this year. I didn't put my little guy in, but he would really love to skate. And I think it would be great for everybody in the area just even to get out and be able to skate around the rink. Are taking our social distancing very serious wherever we go. Some signage posted would be a very good idea, I think, just reminding people. A reminder wouldn't hurt, that's for sure. But I think most people for them are doing their part to social distance, and I definitely think people would appreciate the rink being open. I especially would.
Okay, thank you for that. So do you think it's a fair conclusion then that that we don't have any objection with our CAO's suggestion of moving forward with flooding the rink? And
yeah,
nobody's objecting? All right, I will make a note about that under I'll just put a note here that ice is unknown. All right then. Any other councillor items?
Just have one more. It'll be quick.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to remind everyone that the toy and food drive at this time as well, that the fire department and the Whitestone McKellar Lions Club are spearheading. All the food and toys get used locally within the two communities. We're short on events and locations for collections this year. You can find donation boxes at the Dock Rock and at the fire hall in Dunchurch there. So if anyone's able to make a donation, and just so that council's aware, we just to sort our toys and food the day that we do the deliveries. There'll only be 5 people inside the community center, and we'll wear masks and follow other COVID protocol. But I just wanted council to be aware that we were using the community center, that we sort the food and the baskets before we deliver them.
Okay, well, thank you again for mentioning that, Beth, because I was hoping somebody would mention it. I was going to say, you know, that there was a skim of ice over the whole north end of Whitestone Lake on yesterday. So maybe I don't think I'd want to skate on it, but cold weather at night maybe won't be too long before the surface of the ice will be good enough to go on there too. But anyway, Oshkosh is still open. But anyhow, questions from the public.
Doug Hickey has some questions.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have questions, comments. It's all about the wellness center and the pool survey. First of all, I was very pleased to receive an email today. It was from Pool at Whitestone.ca, thanking me for my input. And so I wanted to comment, what a wonderful thing to do is to thank people for their input. And so, Madam CAO, is everybody that's submitting either at info at Whitestone or Pool at Whitestone, are they getting an acknowledgement like I got today? Because that's a great idea.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, yes. Everybody got an acknowledgement today. I was a little bit behind on that, but I've caught up, and I've basically, the messages, as you know, Mr. Hickey, we thank you for your input, and that council will collectively receive all of the information at a point after the meeting on the 14th, when another meeting is scheduled to make the decision. So we'll be collecting all the comments, and we've got comments, questions, philosophical discussion. So all sorts of things people have come in, and we've got simple emails that say yes and no. So everyone will get a response to know that their message has been received, and council will get all those at some point in the future.
That is great. Thank you. And I don't know if you recognize how important that is to people to know whatever it was received. That gets me to my second point is on the 14th. I think it's really important because it sounds like there's going to be two parts to the meeting. The first part is where the group from Parry Sound will present about the pool, entertained about the pool. It sounds like there's also going to be an opening there for possibly questions from ratepayers on why Whitestone and unique to the Whitestone involvement. But regardless, at that meeting on the 14th for ratepayers to know, how is this input going to be handled? You folks know, but what the public doesn't know, the people who are inputting it, they don't know the process or the timeline for when you're going to analyze it, how you're going to share it among yourselves, and how it's going to be used to come up with an analysis. We are or we're not going to do whatever. And so again, it's been wonderful that we've allowed people to provide input, but we've told them nothing about the process. So I think next meeting on the 14th is a great time to say, we appreciate your input. We'll continue to get your input, and such a date, whatever that date is, at which time we're going to analyze it, share it with our counselors. So I think the public needs to understand the process. So I think that could be done maybe in the second half of next week's meeting. I think it's something that could also put on your website and on your website, Facebook, is something more about the process of how their input's going to be used.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you again. I think I think we are done with our business. Could I have a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw, please?
Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Any discussion? Any objection? Okay, hearing none. Our seatings are confirmed. Would someone like to move adjournment? I see a whole raft of hands going up. I see Councillor Gorham Matthews moved, seconded by
I'll second, Councilor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen. Thank you very much. This meeting be adjourned at 8:17 PM. That must be some sort of a record, I would think. Until the next scheduled meeting of Monday, December 14th at 6:30. Or at the call of the chair, and I don't plan to call you in between next Monday. So thank you again, everybody, for your participation.
I just see on the internet here, I was just looking, and there's a picture of what looks like a beautiful dog looking in a room, and the dog is supposedly saying to the owners inside, "So I've been barking for 20 minutes, and you keep telling me to shut up, and you keep ignoring me. Anyway, your car is gone."
Well, there you go.
Have a good week, folks.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Good night.
Oh, can you hear me, Judy?
I can. Hello.
Hi. Judy,
Yeah.
Nadine was chatting with me, just as an aside, because she said, every time you drop off, I'm being made host. Is there anything I could do to help? And I just told her I was having problems. But if I wanted to chat with someone privately, how do I do that?
Oh, okay. Scroll your cursor to the bottom of the page and you'll see a list of things pop up and you press chat.
Okay.
So you open the chat window and then it says to. And if you click to the arrow on the right, you can get a list of everybody who's on right now. So you have two options. You can send to everybody, but if you just wanted to privately chat, you could like choose me, and then it would say to Judith Mates privately, and then you and I, the chat would not be seen by anybody else.
Okay. So I've got the list of who's on, which is me and you and me.
Right. Yes. All three of us.
Yes. So me, myself, and I.
Yes.
Actually, I can open up the video. I close at one. I mean, the protocol is, and I'll have to let Bob know. He obviously had someplace to go, and I'll remind George to let Doug Hickey know. Really.
Yes, because he didn't say anything.
No, I'll remind him. But okay, so I've got over to my right, there's a list of the three people that are here. And yes, you're there. And so when I hover over your name, it says mute. So I can mute you if I don't like what you're saying.
You can.
and
that's because you're the host. So I
host.
Can't do that. Only you can do that to other people.
So then I've got more.
Yes.
And more says stop video, spotlight video, make a host, allow record, rename.
Yes.
Put in a waiting room and remove. So I don't see an opportunity to chat with you.
Okay, so take your cursor and scroll down to the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
And you should get a little bar of icons.
Yeah, I've got participants, chat, share screen,
right.
That kind of thing.
So chat